This is the best pecan pie that you will ever eat. Have you ever wanted a no-run pecan pie? This recipe that I'm going to share with you is not runny. You will have a perfect pie every time. And I'm going to show you 3 tips that's going to help you make the perfect pecan pie. Welcome to K&D's Homestead. I'm Donna. I'm glad you're here because I'm really excited to share my pecan pie recipe with you. It is July, but why can't we have pecan pie in July? I've been craving pecan pie for at least a week now. And today started out a very rainy day, and I decided today was the day to stay in the kitchen and make that pie that I have been wanting so bad. I don't know who can't love pecan pie. And it's pronounced one way or the other depending on your location and the culture that you grew up in. I'm in the South. Pecans is what I grew up on. Okay, so this pie is absolutely delicious. First, I'm going to read you the recipe. I'm going to put the recipe down below in the description. My mother-in-law gave this recipe to me in 1980 when I first got married. And I have been using this recipe that long. I've seen a lot of friends and family who have made pecan pie according to the recipe on the back of the Karo bottle. I tried that a few times. It did not work. Runny, runny, runny. So we are going to use Karo syrup. The ingredients on the back of the bottle are very similar. They're just slightly different. But if you've ever had a runny pecan pie and you cannot figure out how to make it not be runny, try my recipe. There is a variation, although we're going to use the Karo syrup itself. I'm not using the Karo recipe. For this recipe, it calls for 2 tablespoons of softened butter. I've got that measured out and I've already had it on the counter to soften for a while. 1 cup of chopped pecans. I've got those chopped. Now you can use whole. I just like to use chopped. I think originally when she gave it to me it was whole, but I discovered that I preferred the chopped. So you can use chopped. Either way, it's 1 cup of pecans. 1 cup of light brown sugar. Now I made my sugar today because I didn't have any, but you can use your store-bought, you can home make it, whatever. Just remember, when you are using brown sugar, you want to pack it. Always pack it in nice and tight. So that's already measured out and ready to go. You're going to use 3 eggs, separate eggs. This is one of the tips. I've got all my eggs in 3 separate bowls, and I'm going to beat them separately. You're not going to just dump them into the mixture. They need to be room temperature as well. And then 3/4 of a cup of the Karo light syrup. And that's it. We're going to preheat the oven to 400 degrees. And I'll share with the next tip that has to do with that oven in just a moment. So let's get started. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to combine my butter, which is softened. Let me turn you down so you can see. Okay, so I have my softened butter in here, and I'm going to combine that with the brown sugar. Just dump that in there. I'm going to use a different mixer. You're going to mash this in until this butter, I'm going to get me something else. You're going to mash the butter and the brown sugar together and get them well combined. And it seems like it's an impossible task because it seems like there's more brown sugar than there is butter. But we're going to mash those together and get them well blended. Notice I did not melt the butter. It was just softened butter that is put into the mixture in the softened state. I don't know why so many people think that you can't have pecan pie except at Thanksgiving or Christmas. I love pecan pie all year long. But something has made me crave the pecan pie for at least a week now. All right, I have the butter and the brown sugar blended well. Now I'm going to add the syrup. And that is 3/4 of a cup of syrup. All I have is a 1/4 cup, so I'm just going to do this 3 times. I'm going to blend this together really well. Get all that sugar wet. There's my oven, it's ready. Might have to mash up a couple of pieces of the brown sugar. So here's the first tip. Our eggs are measured out separately. I'm going to lightly beat each egg, there's 3, into this bowl. Then I'm going to pour it in, and I'm going to use the mixer to blend 1 egg at a time. That's the first tip. Okay, that was the first tip. It does make a difference blending those eggs separately. What you're doing is you're whipping air into that recipe, and that's going to make a less dense pie. It's called the meat of the pie. It's going to be less dense. It's going to be fluffier, but it's going to set. Instead of cooking and being a runny status, it's going to set. So it makes a big difference blending with the mixer 1 egg at a time. Now for the third egg, I'm going to break it up and just lightly beat it with the fork. And then I'm going to put it in and blend that one. That will be the 3 eggs blended separately. Okay, don't need the mixer anymore. Now we have our 1 cup of pecans. I'm going to pour those in there and just stir them around and get them all wet and blended. And that's all there is to the recipe. I'll go over this again. The first tip is set your oven at 400. Whenever you find, even on the bottle of the K-Row, it says to cook at 350 for X amount of time. The first tip is don't do that. Set your oven at 400. It needs to be high first for a few minutes. Now I'm ready to pour all of this into my pre-made pie shell. If you make these at Christmas or Thanksgiving, you might be wanting to make more than one, so you would double your recipe or triple it. Actually, I find doubling is about the maximum that I want to do. I don't rarely find a recipe that I feel safe tripling. Sometimes it makes the ingredients a little off, but you can definitely double it. So I've got my mixture in my pie shell that I made earlier. I will put a link on this video to make this pie shell. It's a very good flaky and tender pie shell. I did that in a video actually before I did this video, because I know everybody doesn't want to use a homemade pie shell. They may not have time. Turn you back up here. They may not have time. So I didn't want to make it as in one video, because you might have one of these, which I did have in the freezer, but the trouble with that, when you store them and put them in the freezer and you pull them out, what you get is broken up pie shell. I went ahead and made a pie shell, but everybody don't have time for that. Not everybody wants to do it. So I split the videos up and I did the pie shell separate and the pecan pie in a different video. Have my oven preheated to 400. The next tip, number 2, is cook it at 400 instead of 350. But you're only going to cook it for 15 minutes at 400. And then the third tip is you're going to turn it down. So you're going to turn it down to 325 for 25 to 30 minutes. And it makes a huge difference on this pie cooking properly. It takes a long time for pecan pie. Then you're going to set it on the table and you're going to let it set, S-E-T, set for 2 hours. And it's going to gel where you're not going to have a runny pie. So my oven is ready. I'm going to put this in. I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes. Here's another tip. When that oven beeps, says, hey, I'm 400 degrees, don't pop this in there right away. You want to wait 5 to 7 minutes and let that oven stabilize. Because as soon as it hits 400, it's going to hit 400, it's going to fluctuate back and forth. You want that oven to be stabilized temperature-wise. So I always wait 5 to 7 minutes. It's been longer than that actually since the oven temperature, the timer went off. So I'm ready to put it in. 15 minutes. So I've got my oven set for 15 minutes. As soon as the timer goes off, I'm going to quickly turn my oven down to 325 and reset the timer. If you can jiggle it just slightly on the rack and you don't see a lot of movement, then you'll know that the pie is ready. There will be just a slight bit of movement, but it shouldn't be jello movement. It should kind of be, you know, set and firm. I'm gonna tell you, it makes a huge difference. I failed so many times in my youth trying to make pecan pie because I loved it so much. And when I got married, one of the first things that my mother-in-law taught me was pecan pie. She taught me how to make biscuits also. But the pecan pie, oh, I just love it. It turns out every single time, no fail, and no runny juice in the bottom of the pie plate. I'm gonna let this bake, and when I pull it out, I will be back and I will show you out of the oven. And then I will come back and cut that pie and show you the inside of that pie. Right now, I want to go over the tips that I had intended to give you. The first tip to a good pecan pie is 3 eggs beaten separately. You know, just whisk it with a fork in a separate bowl, then put it in your mixture and use a electric mixer and beat that egg 1 egg at a time into the mixture. The second tip is start your oven at 400 degrees. Unlike many other recipes that say 350 and the recipe on the K-Row bottle, start your oven at 400 degrees. Wait 5 to 7 minutes before you put your pie in the oven. You want that oven to stabilize, to be at 400 for at least 5 to 7 minutes. The next tip, you're only going to bake it for 15 minutes at 400, and then you're going to turn that oven down to 325 and bake it the rest of the way. All right, time is up and it's time to check the pie and take it out of the oven. All right, here it is. Now I can shake it. The whole pie has a little jiggle, but it's not much. Now you can leave it in a few minutes more if you want the edge of your crust a little browner. I like the light golden brown, so I'm going to leave mine out. Now every oven is different. For my oven, it was a total of 1 hour. For your oven, it could be a few minutes less, a few minutes more, because all ovens cook differently. What's most important is bake that pie at 400 for 15 minutes, and then another 45 minutes once you turn that oven down. It's okay if it goes a little longer, if you feel like it needs to go a little longer just to brown your crust, but 15 minutes to begin with on 400, and the 325 is about 45 minutes. It's okay if it ends up being 1 hour and 5 or 1 hour and 10 minutes, but for my oven, it's a total of 1 hour for the crust to get to the color that I like and the no jiggle stage. So I'm going to leave my pie on the counter. I said originally it needs to set for 2 hours. It could, depending on the temperature in your home, it could only be 1 hour. Don't cut it for a minimum of 1 hour. I like to leave mine sitting for 2 hours, but if you just, you know, you're looking at it, it's calling your name, and you just have to cut it, you can cut it in 1 hour, but let it sit. Please let it sit for at least 1 hour, up to 2 hours. I like for mine to completely cool down and be room temperature. If I want to microwave it and make it warm, I'll do that, but it seems to me that it sets better and gels up the longer it sits. But of course, you know, you don't want to let it sit forever. Who wants to bake a pecan pie and just sit and look at it? We want to eat it, we want to cut it. So I'm just going to let this sit on the counter. When I'm ready to cut it, I will come back and show you what the inside of this pie looks like. Okay, everybody, time is up and I'm ready to cut into this pie. Picked the wrong thing to cut it with. Man, I love pecan pie. There we go. Look at this plate. Nothing runny in there. The pie crust is so flaky. Look at that. Perfect. I can't wait to eat it. I know it's going to taste good. I mean, pecan pie never tastes bad. But look at that. Oh my goodness. See? Not runny. I used the wrong knife to cut it with. It didn't cut smooth, but it's all in there set. Inside is actually still hot. This is so good, y'all. Pecan pie in July. I could have pecan pie any time of the year, any week, any month, any day. I love how it all holds together there. Of course, the pecans do cause it to fall apart, but as you can see, there is nothing runny. The pie crust is very flaky. It's good. Okay, y'all. I want to encourage you to bake homemade. If you have a good recipe that is a no run, you know, it's not runny, share it with me. I would love to know if there's a different way, but I know I cannot make it according to that bottle. And I've tried a few others. There's a lot of variations to pecan pie. I don't like it runny. But if you have a recipe and yours is not runny, please share it with me. I would love to know if there's any other variation to making this pie. Also, do you have a recipe to make your own pie crust? I would love for you to share that with me, and let's, you know, compare notes and see how yours is different from mine and how it works out. I like good recipes, even if it's a variation, but if it works, I still like to know about it so that I can try it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I sure hope that you will try my recipe. And I hope that you will like the video, as in hit the like button, and subscribe, and share it with anybody that you want to, and help my videos get out to other people. I appreciate it. And until I see you again, I hope y'all have an awesome day. Bye-bye.